You know, the real good thing about following the presentation before you can have a lot of the same ideas, and you're going to see a lot of similarities, even though we're 1,000 miles apart or further. And that's what we see, a commonality everywhere across the country. This is what really helped us. Once we stopped being afraid of what could go wrong and started getting excited about what could go right. You really got to think about that. To make it work, you got to think it'll work. And that's the reason I said this morning about don't go to the coffee shop, because them guys are going to tell you it's not going to work, and then sure enough, what's going to happen. You've all saw this. I've got the 5th one down here on the bottom, integrating livestock. It's just a little different twist. It's all about diversity, but we're going to armor our soil. We're going to minimize disturbance the best we can. We're going to increase our plant diversity. We're going to keep a living root in the ground, probably longer, as some of the guys can up north, just because Mother Nature's not on their side all the time up north. And then we're going to put some cattle in there. This is rye. I am in wheat country. That's the reason I don't go to the coffee shop, because the guys are not very friendly to us, but we've found that rye really works good for weed suppression. We're going to plant soybeans in this field. We're going to plant them green, or we're going to spray them. I've got some neighbors, especially if I'm next to a wheat guy and we're getting ready to get into a long wet spell that we can have, I'll go ahead and terminate that so we won't have any seeding problems. So I don't want any encroachment on the neighbors, because I do have to live with them. And we also have triticale, pretty good cover crop here. We're actually going to harvest this triticale for seed, but then we planted right behind that. But you can imagine what kind of ground armor we can get on with this kind of crop. And I am standing, I'm not kneeling, so it's, but once we harvest our wheat, we're going to be planting. Once we get done planting, we get a little growth. We're going to measure these. Some of my good partners within RCS. This was in the early days when we just get started. And you see in the background, we're along gypsum hills. So I've got some good farm ground in the river bottom on the South Canadian River. And then we're up against the gypsum hills. And so that's what kind of grass we have outside of our production land. So it's pretty rough. And water is an issue. We've tried some things, and we'll talk about that a little bit more about that. But the key thing about this photo is, just like Justin talked about, this is going to be really good grazing here just pretty quick, like now. And we're measuring to see how much forage we got out there, so we can kind of get a stocking rate, so we can kind of have an idea how much we got, what our goals are going to be. As you can see, it doesn't take very long to go from waist high to hood high on the tractor. This was in the early days, like I said, when we thought we had to run a shredder or something down to it to get a poly wire. Since then, we'll just drive over it, knock it down a little bit, and then let the cows go to work. We use a lot of poly tanks in our system too. These are a set of yearlings that we're grazing here. You can see how big that cover crop is now. That's one thing that it was hard for us to adjust to start with, was if you got, say, 40 paddocks in a field and you're moving every day or every other day, time you get through to the last one, you've had several days of growth, and that stuff can really get away from you. But it's still good grazing, and we'll talk about diversity. This is a 15-way blend. We've upped our blends number-wise for the past few years, just because not always is every species going to grow and do as well. So we found we have less error if we have more diversity. So we'll have some of that tall stuff, wheat. We like that because cattle really not going to graze on that because the lignan's high, but it's a really long-lasting residue. So if you're trying to build soil like I am, and I talked about that this morning, how low we started in organic matter, we don't want that residue going away very quick. So we'll put some things in there that will last. It may not be as good a grazing, but we've got 13 other things in there that would be good to graze on. This was last summer at a field day. I was trying to make a demonstration about moving polywire. You can see right here's a polywire. This is my wife here. So we had 150 some people show up for the field day, and we're going to try to demonstrate how we can move a set of cows, pick up a polywire and put it out. Little did I know, and I asked them before we got there if they could be quiet, which they actually done a pretty good job. What I didn't realize is they were all going to line up on the fence right where I was going to move the cattle out. Now these cows that were moving had only been in the system 3 days. So Jimmy was a little bit nervous, and what we normally don't do, we done that day was I had Ginger pull the feed pickup in there just as a security deal. Then a local reporter and a local PR guy with NRCS wanted to get on the back of the feed truck and film it, which most of you would know cattle don't like change. They don't really like 150 people standing here. They don't like somebody on the back of the feed truck. But what they do like is moving to a new paddock. So needless to say, in 17 minutes, we drove in, we opened this wire up, moved them cows into that paddock, rolled that poly wire up behind, and put one out, and was done. Me and one hire hand and a ranger. Ginger was in the feed pickup. Normally we wouldn't have the feed pickup in there. So that particular field then, we grazed through there that summer. Then we killed that and went to a cool season. We grazed that all winter. We terminated that and planted grain sorghum on that. That's what I was talking about this morning, that grain sorghum, we had no herbicides, no insecticides, and only 40 units in, and it was a really good grain sorghum crop. So it's all about the rotation and management of the rotation. Now, to start with, we wanted to understand, we get lots of questions about how cattle graze. Are there nitrogen? Are there prussic acid problems? We never have any of that issue with a big diversity, but we wanted to learn a little bit more about that. And so with the Noble Research Institute help, built us a collar, and we're putting a camera on this heifer. And we selected her out of the herd as naturally one of the more gentle, docile ones, and she turned out to be a pretty good specimen to do that. Everybody can be on the internet.
But I agree, she's being good. They're not usually that good.
I took 2 pictures of her yesterday morning.
Yeah.
He didn't show me.
Well, she was asleep.
You
sure this isn't the bottle fed one?
See what?
I said, you sure this isn't the bottle fed one?
It is not. So what we found out was 35 days later, and a lot of patience from Jimmy, we did find the camera and were able to retrieve that. We had, you notice there that we didn't have 15 species listed what she ate. I will tell you, in all the raw footage, she had sampled everything out there that day. Now that particular day, she grazed more on the millet, more often than anything else. But if you took a bricks meter that day, the millet was just perfect. So she really preferred that day, but she also grazed on everything else.
Just a question, is where did she come off of? Was she on grass or where did she come off of?
Well, we had weaned them off the cows, so they'd been on native range, and we went to a cover crop then. So it was a very good exercise for us. Yes, ma'am.
Were those new species to them, or had they seen them?
That was new to them.
So all of this was still experimental.
Right. So it was a pretty good process, and we got a lot of good data out of that. And that's the reason I was so persistent about finding the camera. And what I finally done, and my wife and my hired hand made really bad fun of me. I took a roll of toilet paper with me, and I take 3 steps, and I just look and look, because you can see the canopy there. We went ahead and grazed that for 30 days, and we opened the canopy up some, but we still had lots of residue there. So I dropped a tissue to mark my spot, and I just kind of gridded through the field as I went to get that. So much like Justin talked about, 45 to 50 days, you see all the diversity in the mix. Since then, we built a portable water trough that we pick up out of a 36-inch pipe we cut in half. We've got a water trailer in front with a solar pump, and so we can move the water around. And actually, we're doing some really good trials this past summer about moving water instead of moving fence. And you can actually train cattle to the water that they won't wander very far from the water. Much like a fence, they get really content if they know you're going to move the water around. So we're going to continue that in some of that rough country that's hard to build a fence on. We can utilize some of that. So this is some data that was a few years ago in a trial that we done. Our goal was to take 25% and leave 75% out there. And everybody says, well, why would you want to do that? Well, I'm trying to build my soil. And remember what I told you, I started at a few tenths of a percent of organic matter instead of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4%. So we run some cows in there with calves. Calves weighing 536. We also had weaned calves in there. We put them all together. We put up 11 paddocks that year, and we're going to move about every 3 to 4 days. But look what happened. When we measured this, we utilized 22%. So we've done a pretty good job of hitting our target in that. And what did that data tell us? Now you're going to think these numbers are a little high dollar-wise, but remember this was a few years ago when cattle were really worth something. So the 42 calves going in, 63, we valued them. What they done coming out, that's another value. Or 13 head of calves on the cows here come out. We had 60 acres in the trial. This is how many dollars of beef I took off in 49 days. You look down here, the weaned calves gain 2 pounds a day. The calves on the cows gain nearly 3. That was 2.96 or something like that, but I didn't carry that out for 39 days. And so that's a really good fit for a cow-calf guy. Now my neighbor screamed and said, this can't be right, 3 pounds a day. I said, well, do you agree with 2 pounds a day of a weaned calf? Well, I guess maybe. He said, my calves on native pastures gained about 1.25 pounds. I said, I would agree with that. And I said, so what's a cow's milk worth? He said, I hadn't thought of that. So what we really like to do now, since we've done this original trial, is we'll put the cows and calves in there and get them used to the system, and then we'll go gather the cows and leave the calves there and wean them right there. once they kind of get used to that. And it doesn't take very many days. This is another young individual that I'm helping. We started Western Soil Health, a Facebook group with the Noble Foundation and Research Institute. Landry was a wheat farmer too, but he's also trying to run stockers, so this really fit him. But look at what he done last summer, and it was pretty dry. He had 3.6 head per acre. They weighed 475 pounds. An average daily gain of 2 pounds. The 504 pounds of beef come off that in a 70-day test. Amazing numbers. And what's even more amazing is Landry had a lot of sickness. He bought these calves and didn't get them straightened out before he turned them out. There is no telling what this number would have been if he had a healthy set of calves going in there. But it really saved him on this cover crop. This is Monty Tucker. Now, Monty's in Sweetwater, Oklahoma, and I want to tell you, it never rains in Sweetwater, Oklahoma. Now, you think I'm dry, in Sweetwater, Oklahoma, it's just not going to rain very much. But Monty wanted to try this, so he used my species cover crop mix that year. I don't normally like to give out my mix because it's just not fit for everybody. I think you should design your own mix for your own location, but I helped him out. Monty had 1 3/10 inch rain in June after he planted, so he turned out 371 head of 580 weight heifers right here on 205 acres. They were coming off a starting yard on full feed. Keep that in mind. These heifers gained 2 pounds a day for 32 days coming out of the starting yard. Tremendous gain for him. What Monty wanted to do is he figured it at 35 cents a pound, which would be a custom grazing rate in that area. But he only had 3.4 inches of rain for the year that year. That was in the middle of a drought. His neighbor said, well, you didn't get to plant any wheat pasture. He said, no, I had my pasture this summer. It didn't rain that fall, so he was limited on his cool season mix. But you're going to be limited if you don't have that kind of water. So pretty good trial. This is some grain sorghum that we harvested. We planted the next day after we harvested that grain sorghum. That's winter wheat. That's going to be our seed production. Willie was up there after we done that and helped us look in the soil. It was pretty amazing. But look what our cattle done on this test. We had 49 steers in 65 acres, and steers weighed 625 going in. We averaged 3.2 pounds a day. Pretty good gain in our area. But they had some heads to pick up. They had some dry matter to eat out there, and they had really a good wheat pasture. This is that triticale that I was standing in that we harvested. And this is the same day. This is what I like to do every time if I can. But Justin talked about that. Sometimes the equipment, Mother Nature, having enough help. Ginger mentioned that. But this is what we like to do. This is some of the mix here. This is our sun hemp. Here you can see what we like about our mix is we have it down here in the understory real thick, so we have some low growing millet. We also have some cool season collards in there that will run in 100-degree weather. What we found is once this canopy is cool, then collards will survive in there until the fall. We also want something in the mid-story, but in our real sandy areas where we have trouble building organic matter, we want a bunch of stuff up here that's going to be long lasting. So it's a pretty good program for us. You can see here that this was part of that trial for them cattle. So this is a month after we started grazing. So we started out here, now we're at ceiling height. They measured this forage, we're at 14,800 some pounds of forage there that year. So it's pretty good. This is the collards I was talking about. This is that same field grazed at. We've had a little frost, so we still We're not going to take all the forage off of this. We're going to build our soil. But you can see here, winter wheat volunteer coming up in these collards. And what did we do for cattlemen in the fall? We got a little frost. Once you get a little frost on them collards, the cattle love them. And so we run them back through, but now that didn't last very many days. So we had the accelerator moving up through that. It went pretty good. Why do we do all this? This is at Alan Mendman's in Apache, Oklahoma. Alan, been on no-till on Plains board for quite a while, a great guy. This is a soil scientist retired, Greg Scott. He's on the board with me at no-till on Plains. Everybody asked me, said, why didn't you dig a pit deep enough to work with? That is sand rock. That's all Alan has to work with, is from here up. But what I want you to notice is the berm of dirt around this. You see in the background, thunderstorms coming up. So we finished the field day there. These are some of the plot work. This is grain sorting behind here. This is a mix of Alan's. Greg is telling us all about what's in the soil, and Alan's been doing this about 15, 16 years. He's growing about 16 different crops on his farm. I'm up to about 8 now, versus originally just 1. After we left, I got a call and it said, man, it's come 1.5 inches rain. And this is what happened. Now that water did not run into the pit from the top. The berm did not allow it. It's actually running out of the pit right here. That is from his infiltration in the ground and earthworms. It was squirting out the sides of that pit into his water cycle is working the way it's supposed to. The misconception of most people in America today think that it rains, it runs on the top of the ground, down the waterway, out into the road, down to the pond, to the watershed. Sadly, a lot of instances that's what it's doing because the water cycle is not working right. It is supposed to go in out here, down, and move sideways in the profile. It's going to be on top of that sand rock. The thing here, Alan doesn't have a full profile, so the least resistance is where the opening was, and that's the reason it come out there. A really good example of how a water cycle is supposed to work. So I talked about going to Tennessee earlier today. This is Adam Doherty's, and there's a reason I'm going to share this, you'll find out here in a little bit. This is in the soybean field that beans were this tall. I'm not kidding, they were this tall. They call this really good soil there, and there's a reason why. This was in a pasture for years, and then they just went to no-tilling in there, so the organic matter is off the chart. So I'm going to take, I'm going to gently pull that rye back. What he done, he drilled that green, planted the beans, and then come over the top and terminate what was left. So when I rake that residue back, this is what the top of his soil looks like. This producer that Adam's helping. Look at the infiltration points. That's why his soybeans are so good. Now, I put my ProScope onto my phone that day and took that magnification lane right on top. The reason I've done this is to show you what we talk about infiltration and get your aggregate stability big enough that the water will flow down through there. Now, we took, in this particular field, there's no fence line. So they have a post here and a big oak tree at the creek, and that's the property line. We stepped 75 steps, or 75 feet over into the next producer. Oh, this is that soil dug up. So we went over into this other soybean field. Now they were about 6 inches shorter, a great crop of soybeans. This guy's a very good no-till guy, but doesn't believe in cover crops. So I want you to look at the top of the ground here, and Willie, what's going on? How come that's got algae growing on top? Because the balance is not right. It's screaming for cover crops. So I'm gonna focus in right here and keep that little thing right there in mind. This is what magnification with an eyeball looks like. So is he gonna be able to infiltrate water there? I put my proscope on. That's what that looks like. That is not the moon. That is not the moon. And the only difference is cover crop system, both no-till in soybeans. So when it rains, this producer is not going to be able to infiltrate water. So his water cycle is going to be down the road, down the ditch, down to the watershed. And if you got any nutrients on top, where are they going? They're going down to the watershed and the water quality. So everybody says, well, Jimmy, that's in Tennessee. It won't work in Levy, Oklahoma. Now, remember this morning when David put up, oh, this is that soil too, just jumping the gun here. So you understand why water won't go down through that. Remember the Mars picture this morning with David Montgomery? This is not Mars. This is my neighbor's soil. Across the road from where I farm, he's heavy tillage. He tilled this field 6 times this summer. He grazed the wheat out, so he took all. He's a guy that I would classify as a take-all guy. Willie's shaking his head back there. He's not going to leave anything out there because he considers that money. All's left here is some sand and hardly no infiltration points for water. There's a wheat crop growing there right now, and he's grazing it. So I walk back across the road, and guess whose soil that is? That's not Adams or that's not Tennessee. That's the same soil with a different practice in Levy, Oklahoma. That's why I can take 2 inches an hour and more in rainfall and heavy rainfall. We just done the infiltration test here a while back, and we can take on some of our soils up to 4 inches an hour. I don't look back very often. My dad taught me to drive forward and worry about forward. Don't worry about behind you. So I'm not going to look back, I'm stepping on the gas. And I really believe this statement in the highly degraded. You're going to have to feed the system. Don't stop fertilizing and everything in a degraded system, cold water, because you're going to collapse. But give it a chance. We cut ours back 40 to 50%. It will start changing, it will start coming around. And once it kicks in, that 3rd year, 4th year, then it starts taking care of itself. Sometimes I feel like this, trying to figure out all the systems. But I'm getting more comfortable as we go, and I really think things are really going to change. But Will Rogers said it the best. Even if you're on the right track and you sit there, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get run over. Just remember that. Even though you're on the right track and you're doing everything, don't be complacent. Don't be complacent. Just keep moving forward. This is how you can find me on social media. We started Oklahoma Soil Health. It's a public. I'm on Twitter. You saw one of the videos this morning. I've got several on YouTube, everything. Try to share the best we can what's going on in our system. These are our soybeans at home. I was told that we couldn't raise soybeans that far west, and so that was a good double dog dare. And so we've raised them, so now we're going to raise some corn this summer.